Home inspections, how do they blend in with today's market? What are things that sellers should look out for? And lots more in today's Real Talk. Today we have the wonderful Tim Latimer with us from GTA Property Inspections. Thanks for coming on, Tim.
Thanks for having me, Peter.
So Tim, there's been a lot of changes, I would say, well, obviously in the real estate market. How have you found that that's impacted the home inspection business? And what have been the changes that you've seen since the beginning of the pandemic to where we are now?
So beginning of the pandemic, we had huge numbers. Inspections were great. People were able to get them. They weren't present for most of the inspections, but we did have a huge influx. But a year later, we started seeing a lot of multiple offers, and a lot of people weren't able to get the actual condition for a home inspection. As we start moving in closer to this year, and then the past 6 months, we've been able to actually get home inspections done, and they're part of conditions, whether it's 24-hour, 48, or the 5-day. We're able to actually start doing inspections again, compared to the last year where it was very, very difficult for someone to even put that in as a condition.
Yeah, so finally it's a little bit safer to get into a house because you can inspect it.
Yeah.
And you feel like a lot of people maybe, I mean, you obviously wouldn't know, but people might have made mistakes in going in firm and not having that condition in there.
Yeah, so unfortunately we didn't see that part because we weren't part of the process.
Yeah.
But what we do is we've seen it after the fact. So people who did not get an inspection had one done a week later, 2 weeks later after they moved in, and then we did find some of the issues, whether it was an older home with a lot of issues or a newer one with stuff they'd never even seen before. It was very, very different.
Yeah. And in your experience, Tim, when sellers are maybe getting their house ready or going to market, what are some mistakes that you see, like with the mechanicals of the house, or things that sellers often overlook that come up in the inspection that sellers should maybe look out for when they're getting their house ready for sale? I
find when people selling, they're really excited about just trying to make their house look pretty. So somebody walks in and says, oh yeah, it's a beautiful house, I'm totally gonna buy it. But they overlook having someone come and service the furnace, the AC, having a look in their attic to see what's going on. There's nothing worse than having a beautiful house up for sale. The sellers are all excited, and then you find possible mold or an issue in the attic or in the basement.
And then the whole deal falls apart for something that could have
Sometimes it does, yeah. It's unfortunate, but it's one of those things where it's so easy just to get someone to come pop up in your attic or to take a look at your furnace or AC just to make sure whatever you're selling is in good working condition.
And you find a lot of sellers would have their home pre-inspected before they go to market. Is that pretty common?
We're seeing a huge number of that now because during the pandemic, a lot of people weren't able to really walk through for a long time. So they would like to present an idea of what was going on in the house. So they have me come in and we do the pre-inspection for them. I'm starting to see a huge increase in it now, but it's starting to get really good.
So let's talk about the actual inspection. I hear a lot of numbers being thrown around for cost of home inspection, some much higher than others. What is the actual cost for just a home inspection, do you find?
Every inspector will be different. Mm-hmm. Some guys are $1,000, some guys are $200. As long as you find a guy who's insured, knows what he's doing, and has been around or has been mentored by somebody, then it's perfect. Our cost is usually between $400 and $600, depending on if you have a pool, a spa, square footage, and then outbuildings. So we do a lot of country properties, so it would depend on what they have in the back. If it's a barn, I've done a full hockey rink that some guy had in the back. It just depends on what they need, but that's usually between $400 and $600. And we haven't gone much over that unless it's a commercial building.
And then last question for you, you've been through a ton of houses. What would be maybe a crazy thing that you'd seen or a highlight of some of these houses that you've seen, or crazy story?
We've seen everything from guns in the attic to a lady using the bathtub as a cat litter box. It's it's crazy. You meet all kinds, and then you see houses that are absolutely perfect, which doesn't happen often, but we do see everything.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's great. Thanks a lot for coming on, Tim.
Thanks for having me.